Back again to get ready for another Georgia Bulldog home game. Georgia hosts Kent State on Saturday at noon. Everybody's favorite kickoff time, and the Dogs are certainly a big old giant fat favorite. We liked what we saw last week, guys. Eric Zeier and DJ Shockley are here, of course. A terrific performance against South Carolina. It was 48-0 before they scratched the scoreboard. They got a late touchdown with 53 seconds left. It was another dominating performance by the Dogs, guys.
Yeah, it really was. Dogs right now clearly look like the best team in the country, executing on the offensive side of the ball, executing on the defensive side of the ball. It was just a pretty close as you can get to a flawless performance. You know, every other team that you see, and granted, we're not doing deep dives into some of these other schools that are out there, but when you look at the college landscape right now, the way Georgia is playing, you've got to like where this football team is, and the ceiling is still out there to go hit. There's still room to grow, and Kirby has done a great job just within the program of keeping everybody locked into playing to the Georgia standard and what is our level of excellence. So it's been an exciting start to the season for sure.
And I'll say this, Scott. So I get a chance, a couple times a week, maybe every week, to talk about the Dogs on different, radio shows or, all around the country. And the question has gone from, when you ask most teams, hey, where's their weakness? Or, is there a spot that, you guys want to see them improve on? Or now the question is this team better than last year's team? Because when you watch your team, you're like, it's hard to see any glaring weakness. Now, I know Kirby doesn't want to hear that. Coach Smart is like, oh, no, please do not talk about that. Get these guys going. But the question now is, how good can this team be? And last week when you thought, okay, here's a chance on the road to get your first real maybe team that pushes you, maybe going into a hostile environment, playing your first SEC road game. Will this team finally be challenged? And the team stepped to the plate and played almost flawless football. The week before, we had something to harp on. There wasn't anything going on in the red zone. They struggled here in the red zone. Then you come into this ball game and they shut all that down, and guys on the sideline with, 5 minutes to go in the game are locked in with their other guys on the field, trying to make sure, hoping these guys don't score. And that's just kind of the kind of mindset that this team has, is they want to dominate everybody for 4 quarters, and they did that against South Carolina.
Let me read this to you guys and get your thoughts on it. This is Sean Lewis, the head coach at Kent State. This is his quote from this week. He says, "I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's the greatest collection of talent that's ever been assembled on a football team because of the work that Coach Smart and his staff and the tireless, relentless effort they've put into building a program into an elite level. Tremendous test, tremendous opportunity. They are uber talented." Is that rat poison, or is that honesty?
Coach Smart's going to answer that as rat poison, right, Shot?
Yes.
I don't think there's any question about that. It is. When you look at the talent on this football team, listen, is it the best ever? I still think this football team, and the scary thing is this football team still has opportunities to get better. You look at the defensive side of the ball, we've got young guys that are going to continue to grow, where I would feel comfortable making any kind of statement like that. I think it's the best tight end room I have ever seen, for sure. I think outside of that, we've got talent across the board. Is it the most talented roster ever compiled? Who knows about that? I think that's a bit of an overstatement. I think the tight end room, I would agree with them there, is the most talented tight end room I've ever seen. This is an immensely talented team, and Coach Smart has got them playing at a super high level. He's going to go see that comment, though, and no question he's going to call that rat poison. But there's no doubt this team has got talent across the board, young talent that is coming to the program, playing at a very high level right now, but still plenty of room to grow for this Georgia Bulldog football team.
I agree with Z too, man. I think it's a combination of both. But hearing Coach Lewis make that statement, it sounds like he's talking about Kirby's building the Avengers over here, assemble all these different talented people that can do so many things. So the Dogs are now the Avengers to Coach Lewis. But it's fun to watch because I think now each guy on this team feels like they have something to prove so that they don't let the standard of what has happened in the past go to waste. And what I mean is, a lot of these guys, like Z just mentioned, are young guys who are now stepping into big roles, and they want to keep the standard of we winning around here, we winning championships, we're going to national championships. This is, what's expected at Georgia. And I think that's so cool to see. And I think Kirby look at it and say, yeah, we got a lot of talent, defense is flying around, but he's going to say, all right, we look at some of the stats. I mean, we ain't got too many sacks. We're pressuring the quarterback, but we don't have many sacks. But these guys are talented. And I mean, Coach Smart does it too. He always is respectful of the opponents and, talks really good about those guys too. So I don't think Coach Lewis is lying about anything. When you turn on the tape, it's hard to say, okay, this team has a lot of weaknesses or they got some guys that, you can kind of expose. When you look across the board, this is a talented team. They're going to be talented for years down the road.
Well, I hope Kent State is getting paid because they played a brutal schedule. They opened up at Washington, and then they played at Oklahoma. Last week, they got a home game and a win against Long Island, and now they come to the #1 team in the country and the defending national champion. They come to Athens on Saturday. So hopefully they're getting a big paycheck at each of those stops. But they were, Kirby says this is a good team. He said earlier this week, I know you guys don't listen to me in the media room. You think I'm just up here, blah, 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 but this is a good team. At halftime against Oklahoma, it was 7-3. Is that, can you take away some little small victories out of this team? I mean, certainly Kent State is going to be overmatched with this Georgia team based on what we were just talking about. But, what can you take away from these previous games against good opponents like Washington and Oklahoma?
Well, Scott, I think the #1 thing is they're not going to come to Athens wide-eyed. I mean, you're talking about already going on the road to Washington, already going on the road to Oklahoma, playing those caliber of teams. They've seen some of the top talent in the country already. They've been in some of the top stadiums. I think walking into Athens, it won't be a shock to them. And obviously, this will be their third time going against an opponent like this. So they definitely will be confident, feeling like, hey, we can hang with some of these teams. We can play if we play our style, like they said, going up, only 7-3. Kirby talks about the unorthodox way they play defense. They got 4 running backs that are all over 100 yards. Their quarterback is second on the team in rushing. He's completing 60% of his passes. He's not really throwing it to the other team. I know he has a couple interceptions, but this is going to be a team that won't be wide-eyed walking into Athens. And, yeah, the tape's going to be glaring. They're going to know they have an uphill battle. But I don't think they'll be afraid to play Georgia. I think it's a huge opportunity for them. And I'm similar to like all these, other teams around the country that go into places where nobody expects them to win. They have nothing to lose. I mean, they're going to come in here with the mindset of let's be the team that's talked about all night long. If we go out and play, and find a way to get a win or find a way to keep this thing close or, force Georgia into some situations that they're uncomfortable in. So this will be a team I think that Kirby mentions is, even though they've, not supposed to be on the field with you, this is a team that can if, you allow it.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Shock just said. Just to add on to that, when you're an athlete, I don't care what level you play at, you have belief and optimism that you can go out and shock the world, that lightning can strike and you can be the ones that do what everybody else thinks is impossible. And when you talk about the way that they've started, right, they've gone into big time schools and big time environments. They've played well. They've kept it close in the game, as you just mentioned. There will be a belief amongst the players on this football team that they can come out, they can go play with anybody, and why not us? Why not us to be the ones that go out and shock the world? And there is zero pressure. There is nothing for this group to prove. They've got no pressure. If they come out and just hit a couple of shots and do things that others haven't been able to do, that in and of itself is a win. This is a game that Georgia should win, obviously pretty handily. But make no mistake, the players on Kent State, they are coming here to go compete, and they have a belief that they can.
This is a team or program that went 7-7 last year. They played for their conference championship. They didn't win it, and they lost their bowl game. They finished at 500, but that's a vast improvement over previous Kent State teams. They're kind of on an incline right now over the last 2 or 3 years, and you even factor in the COVID season when they only played, I think, 4 games, and they won 3 of those. So this is a program that's proving to itself that it can win. How much of a dangerous game is this for Georgia, or is it?
Listen, I think every time you step on the field, if you're not ready to go play, regardless of who you're playing, there's a chance that the impossible can happen. So you've got to be locked in. So it's dangerous in that fact. This is a team on the rise, right? I mean, it is. It's not as dangerous as South Carolina. It's not as dangerous as Oregon. But when you look at kind of our non-conference schedule, it's probably up there as the most dangerous. Again, it's a game that Georgia should win. There's going to be another big test coming into this weekend. Can Kirby continue to keep this team playing at a high level, regardless of who the competition is? And he's going to be leaning into all of that. Everything that you just mentioned, I guarantee that's going to be in the pregame speeches leading up to this football game all week long, that this is a team that is dangerous. This is a team that hung with Oklahoma. This is a team that is on the rise. It's a team that they believe can win, in order to keep this Georgia team competing and comparing itself to its standard. Kirby's done a great job over the past couple of years, last year specifically, on not playing up or down to whoever is on the other sideline in a given week. That needs to continue. I think if you've got one chink in the armor for this Georgia team, outside of not scored in the red zone against Samford, is that we did not play as crisp against Samford as we did against Oregon or South Carolina, right? Is this team, because it's still young, has this team really adopted? It doesn't matter who we're playing. We're going to be locked in from the opening whistle of every single game. I think that's yet to be seen.
Scott, Z did mention that possibly lightning could strike, and we are playing the golden flashes. So there's a chance of that, But I think Z makes a good point about obviously this being a team that you have to be ready and prepared for. And Kirby talks about we're never going to be hunted here in Georgia, but we have to be honest. When you're the number 1 team in the country, you just won a national championship, you're going to be hunted. So Kent State's coming here saying we're playing the defending national champs in their building, in their place. Let's go hunt them down and try to get us a win. Let's go try to make this interesting. And I think with every team, even last year, Kirby talked about every week. I remember him talking about, let's not, let everybody tell you how good you are. There's always things we can improve on. There's always things that you can do to make yourself better, continue to work, continue to get better. And this year, you don't have as many of those leaders on the team, like a Jordan Davis, the Kobe Dean, all those guys who would make sure those young guys would be ready to go. You got a lot of younger players playing key roles. Are those guys still staying focused on what's important each and every week, especially after everybody continues to tell you how good you are? Now, Kirby does a great job of stressing that every single week to the team. I've heard him after every ball game, stress that to his ball club about we got to continue to work. We got to continue to get better. Don't let everybody, pat you on your back. And he even said in his press conference after the game last week, you guys don't stop filling our guys' head up, we'll be just fine. But I think this will be an opponent that absolutely, like I mentioned earlier, won't have anything to lose and will be excited to play this Georgia football team and hopefully have something they can tell their kids down the road of what they did to the defending national champs. So Georgia has to be focused. And Z, you made a great point, man. That Samford game, you wasn't as crisp as you was in those big-time matchups that you can get up for. This will be another game where it won't be as enthusiastic to get up for a team like Kent State. Can you start fast and can you finish them fast? It's going to be the big question.
Yeah, it's a 12 o'clock kickoff, 8 o'clock for the radio airtime on the Bulldog Sports Network. We hope you can join all of us here on the screen. And last thing for you guys is if Georgia plays to its standard, does that simplify it? If Georgia plays to its standard, they easily win this game. Is it as simple as that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think we probably can say that every single week. And Z talked about it when we first came on is when you look around the country, if Georgia's playing to their caliber or their standard, there's not many teams they can play with. So regardless of who that opponent is on the other side, if Georgia plays to their ability, they are very tough to beat on both sides of the ball.
100% agree. I think Shock just hit it across the board. Listen, I think there's a handful of teams right now nationally that if Georgia's at its best, that can give Georgia a run and go compete. outside of that, right? I mean, you take the top 5, 6, and we'll see. You could have some teams that creep up into that, right? You've got Kentucky looming, you've got Tennessee looming, that could creep up into that mix. But as it stands right now, Georgia plays to its capabilities. This is a football team that has very few holes in it, if any.
All right, that's Eric Zier and DJ Shockley, and we hope you can join us this weekend for Georgia football on the radio. And if not, well, we'll be here next week right here to talk about the next ball game facing the Bulldogs. So until Saturday, Georgia and Kent State coming up at noon on Saturday at home, Sanford Stadium. I'm Scott Howard. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.